The road stretched endlessly through fields of dust and dying trees. Daniel Huxley gripped the steering wheel a little too tightly, his knuckles pale under the morning light. The radio hummed low, old country songs about second chances, but no one in the car spoke. Laura stared out the window, her sunglasses hiding the exhaustion around her eyes. Evan sat in the back seat, tapping his fingers against his knees, counting every mile marker like it was a small victory. He was 12, bright and quiet, the kind of child who tried to keep the peace without ever understanding why peace was needed. This trip was supposed to fix things. At least that's what Daniel told himself. Fresh air, he had said. Just the three of us, away from screens, work, and noise. What he didn't say was that the house had become unbearable. Every dinner ended in silence, every night in different rooms. The road narrowed as they approached Pinevale National Forest, a forgotten stretch of wilderness where cell signals died and time felt suspended. Daniel had camped there once with his father, decades ago. It had been the last time he'd felt safe. He glanced at Laura. "You remember the trail I told you about? The one near the old fire tower?" She nodded without looking at him. "Yeah, sounds perfect." It didn't sound like anything. Her voice was flat, careful. Evan leaned forward between them. "Are there bears here?" Daniel forced a smile. "Only the nice kind." They both laughed, briefly, awkwardly, and the sound faded into the hum of tires on gravel. They reached the campsite just before noon. A clearing of damp grass, a crooked wooden sign, and a fire pit full of ashes. The air smelled of pine and something metallic beneath it. Daniel parked, stretched, and breathed deep, pretending it was peace he tasted, not the sourness of something coming undone. "Let's set up camp," he said. Laura unpacked the tent without a word. Her movements were mechanical, precise, as if she were somewhere else entirely. Daniel watched her for a moment. How she avoided his eyes, how she brushed past him like he wasn't there, and felt the old bitterness crawling up his throat. Evan's laughter cut through the tension as he chased a squirrel near the tree line. Daniel envied his innocence, his ability to exist without knowing what was breaking around him. Hours passed. The tent was up, the fire crackled, and dusk wrapped the forest in gold. They sat around the flames eating canned soup, the kind Daniel used to take on trips with his father. For a fleeting moment, it almost felt normal. Laura looked up at the sky. "It's beautiful out here," she said softly. Daniel met her gaze. "It could be," he replied, "if we let it." She said nothing after that. The silence between them was louder than the fire's crackle. When Evan finally fell asleep inside the tent, Daniel stayed by the dying flames, watching the shadows sway across the trees. The forest whispered, leaves, wind, maybe something else. He thought of the arguments, the missed calls, the late nights Laura claimed were work. He thought of the distance that no road trip could ever close. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl cried. Daniel's hands tightened around the coffee mug. Tomorrow, he promised himself, would be different. He didn't know it yet, but by tomorrow night, everything would be gone. The morning sun filtered weakly through the trees, painting the campsite in streaks of gold and gray. Birds chirped somewhere beyond the mist, and the faint hiss of the dying fire still lingered in the air. Daniel hadn't slept. He sat by the cold ashes, his eyes hollow, staring at nothing. Laura emerged from the tent, hair tangled, sweatshirt creased. She gave him a polite smile, the kind strangers give on buses. "Coffee?" she asked. He nodded, watching as she poured hot water into the chipped enamel mugs. Her wedding ring caught the light, though Daniel noticed she'd started wearing it on her right hand. They drank in silence. Evan's soft snores drifted from the tent. For a moment, the world felt paused, suspended between what once was and what was about to happen. Daniel finally spoke. "You sleep okay?" "Fine." "You seemed restless." She looked up, eyes narrowed. "Do we really have to do this now?" "I'm just asking." "You're never just asking." The words hit harder than either of them expected. He turned away, focusing on the forest. Tall pines, the hum of insects, the distant gurgle of a stream. Everything around him seemed alive, thriving, while they sat rotting from the inside out. Later, they hiked the short trail behind the campsite. Evan ran ahead, laughing as he swung a stick through the tall grass. His joy only deepened Daniel's quiet dread. Laura walked a few steps behind her husband, phone in hand, pretending to take photos. But Daniel caught the reflection on her screen. She wasn't in camera mode. She was reading a message. "Who's texting you out here?" he asked. She slipped the phone into her jacket. "Work. We have a project deadline." Daniel smirked. "On a Saturday?" Laura didn't answer. Her silence was confirmation enough. By the time they returned, the air had shifted. A heaviness clung to everything. Evan built a small pile of stones near the fire pit, humming a tune from one of his cartoons, trying to fill the space between his parents' silence. Daniel sat on a fallen log, pulling a small knife from his pack and slicing bark from a branch, slow, deliberate cuts. Each curl of wood felt like a release. "You've been quiet," Laura said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how far we've come to pretend everything's fine." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Daniel, not here. Not in front of him." "I'm not saying anything he hasn't already felt," he said coldly. "Kids notice more than we think." Laura turned away, blinking back sudden tears. For the first time, Daniel saw the fear behind her composure, the fear of being found out. Evan looked up. "Are you guys mad at each other?" Laura knelt beside him quickly. "No, sweetheart. Grown-ups just talk loud sometimes." Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, just loud talking." But inside, his mind was unraveling, pulling every thread that had held their lives together. Who was Em? Why did she keep the phone so close? Why bring him here, to this place that once meant peace, if all she carried was deception? Evening crept in like smoke. They cooked canned beans over the fire, each pretending to enjoy the simplicity of it all. The flames danced against their faces, one glowing, one fading. When Laura excused herself to fetch water, Daniel's curiosity turned into compulsion. He reached for her phone, tucked inside her jacket. One swipe, and there it was, a message from M. "Wish you were here instead." His heart dropped. The phone trembled in his hand as footsteps crunched behind him. He shoved it back too late. Laura stood in the shadows, watching. Her lips parted, as if to speak, but no sound came. The fire cracked between them, sharp and final. Daniel looked at her, eyes burning with something she hadn't seen in years. Not love, but resolve. "Tomorrow," he whispered almost to himself, "we're going to talk about everything." She nodded slowly, unsure if it was a promise or a threat. And as the fire died, the forest swallowed their silence whole, leaving only the faint hum of the night and the echo of words that would soon turn deadly. The fire burned low, throwing uneven shadows across Daniel's face. The forest around them had gone silent. No birds, no wind, only the low crackle of wood surrendering to flame. Laura sat on the opposite side, arms wrapped around her knees, her eyes fixed on the fire. She hadn't spoken since the incident with the phone. Evan was asleep inside the tent, his flashlight still glowing faintly beneath the fabric. Daniel could see the outline of his son's small body curled up, safe for now, unknowing of the quiet storm waiting just outside. Laura finally broke the silence. "You read it, didn't you?" Daniel didn't look up. "I didn't have to. It told me everything." She took a breath, the kind that precedes a war. "You think you know everything, but you don't. You never do." He stared at the flames, jaw tightening. "So tell me what I'm missing." "You want the truth?" she said bitterly. "You wouldn't know what to do with it." Daniel laughed under his breath, a sound colder than anger. "Try me." The fire popped, throwing sparks into the darkness. Laura's voice shook, but her words cut clean. "Yes, I've been seeing someone. His name is Michael. It started months ago. I didn't plan it, but after everything, your temper, your distance, it just happened." Daniel's gaze lifted slowly to her. His expression was unreadable. "Michael," he repeated softly, as if testing the word. "Does he make you happy?" She hesitated. He listens to me. I listen, Daniel said, almost pleading. No, she whispered. You hear me. You don't listen. For a moment, neither spoke. The forest pressed closer, heavy and listening itself. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You brought me here to confess, then? Some kind of closure trip before you move in with him? That's not fair, Laura snapped. I came because I wanted Evan to have one normal weekend. Before we tell him. Tell him what? That we're separating. The word hung between them like smoke. Daniel's chest rose sharply. You've already decided. You decided long ago, she said. Every time you walked past me like I wasn't there. He turned his face toward the dark treeline, his voice low and cracking. You think I didn't notice you slipping away? That I didn't feel it? Her eyes softened. Then why didn't you try to stop it? He looked back at her, and for the first time his composure cracked. Because I thought maybe you'd come back on your own. The wind picked up slightly, bending the flames sideways. Laura shivered. Daniel stood, pacing near the fire pit. His silhouette flickered, one moment calm, the next monstrous. He stopped suddenly. Did you bring him here? What? Your boyfriend. Did he ever come with you to this forest? No, she said quickly. Of course not. Daniel stepped closer. You sure? Because something about the way you looked at this place. Like you'd been here before. Laura's eyes widened. You're scaring me. Good, he said quietly. Maybe now you'll finally listen. She rose, backing up slightly. Daniel, stop. Evan's asleep, he'll hear us. His voice softened but didn't lose its edge. Do you love him? Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know. That's not an answer. She exhaled shakily. I did, for a while. But he's not the reason we're broken. You are. Her words landed like glass shattering. Daniel's hand clenched, nails biting into his palm. After everything I've done. What have you done? She interrupted. You provided. You worked. You existed. But you stopped being with us. For a brief second, the anger drained from him, replaced by exhaustion. He looked down at his hands, trembling slightly. I thought this trip could fix us, he said softly. I thought maybe out here, away from all of it, you'd remember who we were. Laura's voice cracked. I remember. And that's what hurts. The fire hissed as a gust of wind swept through the clearing. Daniel turned toward the tent where Evan slept, his jaw tightening again. I won't let him grow up thinking this is normal, Laura said behind him. He deserves better than us fighting until he hates both of us. Daniel's voice came out low, almost calm. Maybe you're right. He deserves better. She frowned, uncertain whether it was a threat or an agreement. Daniel stared into the fire one last time. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next. Laura watched him walk toward the trees, his figure swallowed by the dark. The fire flickered violently, its light chasing his shadow until it disappeared completely. Then, somewhere deep in the forest, came the faint snap of a branch. Laura froze, her breath catching. The night had begun to change. The sound came again, sharper this time. Laura turned toward the trees, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Daniel? She called softly, her voice swallowed by the dark. No answer. Only the rustle of leaves and the distant sigh of wind rolling down from the hills. She waited a moment longer, then forced herself back to the tent. Evan was still asleep, his chest rising and falling in the dim light. She brushed a hand through his hair and whispered, It's okay, sweetheart. But she wasn't sure if she was comforting him or herself. The air shifted cooler, heavier. A low rumble echoed in the distance. Lightning flashed, a pale vein splitting the sky. Within minutes, the wind howled through the trees like something alive. The forest seemed to twist and breathe. Daniel hadn't returned. Rain began in hesitant drops, then poured with sudden fury. Laura zipped up the tent, heart pounding. Daniel! She shouted again, stepping out into the rain. Her voice vanished beneath the thunder. The fire hissed and died. In the glow of her flashlight, she saw footprints near the treeline. His boots, headed deeper into the woods. She hesitated only a second before following. Each step sank into the mud. The beam of light shook across the path, catching brief flashes of silver bark and water streaming down her arms. "Daniel, come back," she cried. "Please, let's just go home." The storm roared in reply. Somewhere behind her, the tent shuddered. Evan stirred awake, frightened by the thunder. He called for his parents, but only the wind answered. Laura stumbled on a root, falling to her knees. Mud splashed up her jeans. Her flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed her whole. For a moment, she sat there, gasping, listening. The forest was chaos, branches snapping, rain hammering the canopy. But beneath it all, she thought she heard something else. A man's voice. "Laura." She froze. The voice was close but calm, too calm. "Daniel?" she whispered. "Go back," he said almost kindly. "Take Evan. Go home." She turned toward the sound, squinting into the dark. "Where are you?" Lightning illuminated the forest for a heartbeat. She saw him, just a shape, standing several yards away, drenched, motionless. His eyes caught the light. "What are you doing?" she cried. He didn't move. "You shouldn't have lied to me," he said. "Not here." Her breath hitched. "Please, don't do this." "Go back," he repeated, voice rising with the wind. "I can't think when you're near." Then another flash, brighter this time, and he was gone. Laura stumbled backward, searching, calling his name again and again until her throat burned. She turned toward the campsite, but the trees all looked the same. Panic surged through her chest. Rain lashed harder now. She ran blindly, tripping, sliding, her flashlight long lost in the mud. Every direction felt wrong. The forest swallowed her shouts, gave nothing back. At the campsite, Evan sat up, tears streaking his cheeks. The tent's fabric rippled under the wind. He clutched the small camping lantern and whispered, "Mom!" A distant scream cut through the storm, raw, human, brief. Then silence. Evan froze. He waited for another sound. His father's voice, his mother's steps. But the only thing he heard was the steady drumming of rain on nylon. Hours blurred. The storm began to fade, leaving the forest drowned and quiet. Evan crawled out of the tent, calling softly into the gray dawn. "Dad? Mom?" No answer. Only the sound of dripping water and the low groan of trees recovering from the storm. He took a step toward the fire pit. Cold ashes, overturned chairs, scattered clothes. 2 sets of footprints led away. Only one came back. Evan's voice trembled. "Dad!" Somewhere in the trees, a branch snapped again. He turned toward it, heart racing, hope fighting fear. But this time the forest said nothing. The morning came pale and cold, washing the forest in shades of gray. Mist clung to the ground like breath that refused to fade. Evan stood beside the tent, trembling in his damp clothes, eyes darting between the empty chairs and the half-buried footprints. His parents were gone. He whispered their names again, softer this time. "Mom? Dad?" His voice cracked and disappeared into the trees. The world around him felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Even the birds stayed silent, as if waiting. He found his mother's jacket hanging from a branch, dripping with rain. Beside it lay his father's mug, cracked down the middle. The fire pit was flooded, only black water where the warmth had been. Evan's stomach twisted. Something inside him, something small and brave, told him not to stay. He packed his backpack clumsily. Flashlight, half a granola bar, a water bottle. He called out once more, voice breaking, then turned toward the trail they'd driven down. The forest swallowed him quickly. Each step squelched in the mud. Every shadow seemed alive. The trees pressed closer, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. He tried to remember the direction of the road, but the path had dissolved under the rain. He walked for hours. The sun barely pierced the clouds, a dull glow that made everything look the same. When the first sound reached him, a branch breaking behind, he froze. "Dad?" he whispered, spinning around. No one. Only the echo of his own heartbeat. He started running. Branches whipped his face. Roots clawed at his shoes. His breaths came ragged and shallow, but he didn't stop until his legs gave out. He fell to his knees beside a narrow stream, gasping. That's when he saw it. Something half buried in the mud downstream. Piece of torn fabric. Blue. His mother's shirt. Mom! He stepped closer, but the sight that followed made his chest seize. There was blood in the water, thin streaks of red carried by the current. Not much, but enough. He stumbled back, shaking his head. No, it's not hers, he whispered, though every part of him knew it was. The forest around him seemed to lean closer, listening to his denial. He ran again, no longer caring where. Hours blurred. The mist thickened. The trees all identical, cruel. He tried shouting, but his voice was gone. His mind pulsed with one thought. Get out. Find help. Then a sound, different this time. A mechanical hum. He followed it desperately, stumbling through thorns and mud, until he reached a clearing. A dirt road cut through it, slick and narrow. And there, parked at the edge, was a green pickup truck. Two men in ranger uniforms stepped out, startled to see the boy emerge from the trees. Hey kid, one called. You okay? Evan collapsed into the mud, sobbing. My mom, my dad, they're gone. The rangers rushed over, wrapping him in a blanket from the truck. His lips were blue, his hands trembling uncontrollably. It's okay, you're safe now, the older ranger said gently. We'll find them. But as they led him to the truck, Evan looked back toward the forest. The mist had started to rise again, curling between the trees like smoke. He could almost see movement there, shadows slipping behind the trunks. He wanted to believe one of them was his father. The younger ranger knelt beside him. Can you tell us where you last saw them? Evan nodded weakly. They were fighting, and then they were gone. The rangers exchanged a glance. One of them spoke softly into his radio, his tone urgent but measured. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. We've got a child survivor at Pinevale. Possible missing persons, 2 adults. Send search teams. Evan's eyes fluttered shut as exhaustion took him. He heard only fragments. Words like search perimeter, last known location, possible foul play. When he opened them again, the truck was moving. Gravel crunching beneath the tires, the forest receding in the side mirror. But even as the trees disappeared behind him, Evan felt their pull. The woods were not done with them. He looked down at his hands. Mud, scratches, blood he couldn't explain. The ranger noticed and whispered, almost to himself, We'll find your folks, kid. Don't you worry. Evan didn't answer. He only stared out the window as the mist swallowed the forest once more, hiding its secrets, keeping its dead. The drive to the ranger station felt endless. Evan sat in silence, his small hands clenched in his lap. The older ranger kept glancing at him through the mirror, but said nothing. Outside, the fog thickened, rolling over the mountains like a living thing. By the time they arrived, daylight was fading. The ranger station looked old, timber walls, creaking porch, a single buzzing light over the door. Inside, the air smelled of coffee, damp uniforms, and paper. A woman in a sheriff's jacket hurried over. That the boy. Found him by the Pinevale stream, the older ranger replied. Parents still missing. She crouched beside Evan, voice soft but firm. Hey there, I'm Sheriff Lorne. You're safe now, okay? We just need to ask you a few questions. Evan nodded faintly. His eyes were distant, lost somewhere far beyond the walls of the station. They led him into a small room with a table and a recorder. The sheriff sat opposite him, placing a cup of cocoa in front of him. Steam rose, curling like ghostly fingers. When's the last time you saw your parents? She asked. Evan's lips trembled. The night before the storm. They were arguing about something I didn't understand. What were they saying? He hesitated. Mom said she wanted to leave. Dad said she couldn't. He swallowed hard. Then, I heard something outside. A scream. I went out, but it was dark. The sheriff exchanged a look with the ranger standing behind her. And after that? They were gone, he whispered. Their stuff, the fire, everything was still there. Just know them. Did you see anyone else? Maybe another camper. Evan shook his head. Only shadows. The room fell quiet. The sheriff reached out and turned off the recorder. That's enough for now. He needs rest. They took him to a small cabin behind the station, where a cot and a wool blanket waited. The ranger placed a lamp by the bed and whispered, "You did good, kid. Try to sleep." But sleep didn't come easily. Every time Evan closed his eyes, he saw flashes of that night. The rain, the shouting, the faint glint of something metallic in his father's hand. He sat up, heart pounding. A noise outside, footsteps crunching gravel. "Sheriff?" he called softly. No answer. He peeked through the window. 2 officers were loading search gear into a truck, their flashlights slicing through the mist. Beyond them, the woods loomed, silent, watchful. He couldn't look away. Felt like the forest was staring back. The door creaked open. Sheriff Lorne stood there, her face unreadable. "Evan," she said gently, "we're heading out soon to search for your parents. But I need to ask, did your father ever hurt your mom?" Evan hesitated, eyes wide. "He yelled sometimes, threw things. But he loved her, I think." The sheriff nodded slowly, jotting something in her notebook. "Thank you, sweetheart. Get some rest." She left, closing the door quietly behind her. Evan lay back down, staring at the wooden ceiling. But just as his eyelids began to drift shut, something thudded against the cabin wall. Once, twice, a slow, dragging sound followed, like nails scraping wood. He froze. The lamp flickered. Shadows danced across the walls. Then silence. He waited, barely breathing. When he finally dared to look out the window again, the clearing was empty. But deep in the tree-line, a faint light flickered, like a lantern swinging slowly in the dark. His breath caught. Someone was out there. Evan slid under the blanket, whispering to himself over and over, "They'll find them. They'll find them." But a voice inside him, the same one that told him to run that morning, whispered something else. "They already have." Outside, the engines started. Flashlights cut into the night. The search for his parents had begun. And as the trucks rolled toward the woods, the fog swallowed them whole, just as it had everything else. The fog clung to the valley like a living thing, swallowing every sound. Sheriff Lorne's convoy crawled through the narrow forest path, headlights cutting pale tunnels through the mist. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the forest still wept, droplets dripping from leaves, puddles rippling under unseen movements. They had been searching for nearly 4 hours when the first sign appeared. "Sheriff," a deputy called out. "Found something." She climbed down the embankment, boots sinking into the mud. There, tangled in a nest of reeds by the creek, was a torn piece of fabric. Navy blue, heavy, soaked through. Lorne crouched and turned it over with her gloved hand. A jacket, men's size, the name tag stitched inside read, "Daniel Huxley." "Mark this," she said sharply. "Keep searching downstream." The current was slow, but the air smelled wrong, sweet, metallic. She followed it, her flashlight beam slicing through the gray. A few yards ahead, something pale caught the light. "Stop," she whispered. "Don't touch anything yet." The deputies froze. The creek bent sharply, and at the turn, half submerged in the water, lay a body. Face down, hair tangled in roots. The current pushed gently against it, rocking it like a cradle. "Jesus," one of the men muttered. Lorne waded in, the cold biting through her uniform. She turned the body over carefully. The face, bloated, pale, unrecognizable at first, stared back at her through half-lidded eyes. But the ring on the hand was clear. A silver band engraved with an L. She exhaled shakily. "It's Laura Huxley." A hush fell over the forest. Only the water spoke now, trickling softly around them. "Call it in," she ordered, "and bag everything within 50 feet. While the others worked, Lorne stood motionless, staring at the woman's face. The bruising around her neck told its own story. She didn't drown. A faint rustle drew her gaze toward the trees. For a second, she thought she saw movement. Something tall, shadowed, slipping between the trunks. When she turned her flashlight that way, there was nothing but fog. She shivered. "We're not alone out here," she murmured. Back at the station, Evan was sitting with a blanket around his shoulders when they brought her body in. He didn't cry. He just looked at the stretcher being wheeled past him and whispered, "That's my mom." Lorne knelt beside him. "Evan, do you remember anything else from that night? Anything at all?" He shook his head slowly. "Dad said we'd go fishing in the morning. But when I woke up, Mom was gone. Did you see your father after that?" "No, his voice was a ghost. But I heard him calling my name. From the woods." Lorne's pen froze above her notebook. "How long after?" He looked up at her, eyes wide and empty. "After the thunder stopped." That night, the sheriff stayed late at her desk, replaying Evan's words over and over. The autopsy report confirmed strangulation. Time of death, somewhere between 1 and 3 a.m., which meant Laura had died during the storm, and Daniel Huxley missing with his jacket found upstream. She opened the old ranger's map of Pinevale. The creek curved near an abandoned fire tower 2 miles north, the same place Daniel had mentioned in his camping forms. "Search tomorrow," she muttered to herself. "Start from the tower." Outside, the rain returned, tapping softly against the window. At dawn, the team set out again. Mist rose off the creek like breath from a dying thing. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until even the birds refused to sing. Near the base of the fire tower, one of the deputies stopped suddenly. "Sheriff," he whispered, "you need to see this." Footprints. Large, deliberate, half-washed by the rain, but fresh. They led down toward a narrow gorge. Lorne followed the prints carefully, flashlight trembling in her hand. The path ended abruptly at the edge of a slope, and there, partly hidden under fallen branches, was something glinting. A knife, mud-streaked, the handle engraved with the initials DH. The sheriff stared at it for a long time, heart hammering in her chest. Then a radio crackled behind her. "Sheriff, we've got movement up ahead, east of the gorge. Could be a person." She gripped her flashlight tighter, eyes narrowing toward the trees. "Stay where you are," she said into the radio. "No one moves alone. We do this by the book." But as she looked back toward the creek, the fog parted for just a second, revealing a dark figure standing at the water's edge, watching her. When she blinked, it was gone. She didn't say a word, only turned toward her team and whispered, "We keep searching," because in her gut, Sheriff Lorne already knew this wasn't over. Not even close. By the time dawn broke again, the search team had covered nearly every trail within 3 miles of the creek. The forest was still dripping from the night's rain, its silence heavier than before. Every sound, the snap of a branch, the rustle of wet leaves, felt like something watching back. Sheriff Lorne hadn't slept. She stood by the camp table, sipping cold coffee, staring at the knife they had found. The initials carved into the handle, H, weren't proof, but they were close enough. "Still no sign of him?" she asked. The ranger shook his head. "Nothing. If he's out there, he's either hiding, or he's not alive anymore." Lorne didn't reply. She'd seen too many cases where the woods swallowed the guilty whole, but something about this one felt unfinished, intentional. By mid-morning, one of the searchers radioed in. "Sheriff, I think you should see this. Found something by the fire tower." She was there within minutes. The base of the old structure was half-rotted, its ladder missing the first few rungs. But nailed to the lowest beam, held in place by a rusted pocketknife, was a folded piece of paper. Her heart sank as she read the first line, written in messy, rain-smudged ink. "If you're reading this, you found her before I did what I came here to do." It was signed Daniel Huxley. Lorne read the rest silently, the wind tugging at the corners of the letter. "Laura wanted to leave. She said she couldn't live with what we did. But it wasn't just her secret. It was ours. She wanted to take Evan away. Said he'd be safer if I never saw him again. She didn't understand. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just needed her to listen. Her breath caught as she reached the final lines. Tell my son I'm sorry. Tell him I waited for the storm to end before I could make it right. The woods know what I've done, and they'll keep it. Lauren folded the note carefully, her gloves trembling. Get a photo of this, she ordered. Bag the knife. Check the area, 10 meters out. The deputies spread out, scanning the undergrowth. It didn't take long before one of them shouted, Sheriff, over here. She followed the voice to a hollow beneath a fallen log. Inside was a small box, wrapped in a torn flannel shirt. Inside the box lay a ring, a matching silver band to Laura's, and a child's drawing, water-damaged but visible. 3 stick figures holding hands under a sun. Evan's handwriting scrawled across the bottom. Me, Mom, Dad. Lauren's throat tightened. He kept this, she whispered. All this time. Could this mean he planned it? One deputy asked. Lauren looked toward the creek below, the same direction she'd seen that shadowed figure vanish the day before. No, she said softly. It means he didn't plan to run. A chill swept through her as thunder rolled faintly in the distance. She turned to her team. We expand the search beyond the ridge. If he's alive, he's watching us. As they packed up the evidence, the wind picked up, rustling the trees like whispers. Lauren looked up toward the tower. For a moment, she thought she saw a silhouette on the top platform, motionless, watching, but when she blinked, it was gone. She didn't say anything to the others, just folded the letter into an evidence bag and whispered, We're missing something. Something big. When she returned to the station that night, she placed the letter on her desk beside Evan's recorded statement. The 2 stories didn't match, not entirely. Evan had said his father called to him after the thunder stopped. Daniel's letter said he waited for the storm to end before making it right. The timing didn't fit, and that's when Lauren realized one of them was lying. Outside, the rain began again, steady and cold, like the forest itself was listening. Tomorrow she'd go back into the woods, and this time she wouldn't be searching for a man. She'd be hunting a truth that refused to stay buried. The next morning, the air felt heavier, thicker somehow, as if the forest had been waiting. Sheriff Lauren led a smaller team back toward the fire tower, following the same muddy trail that had taken Laura Huxley's life. The clouds hung low, swollen with rain that hadn't yet fallen. Something about the place unsettled her. Every time the wind shifted, it carried a sound, faint, irregular, like a voice trying to speak through static. Same grid as yesterday, she ordered. Spread out 50 feet apart. Watch your footing. The men moved in silence. Even the birds seemed to stay away. Near the base of the ridge, Lauren spotted something half-buried beneath moss. A small black case, no bigger than her palm. She crouched, brushed away the dirt, and frowned. Camera. It was cracked but intact, the kind of motion-activated trail cam hunters use. Bag this, she said, handing it off to one of the deputies. And check if there are more nearby. An hour later, they'd recovered 3 more, all pointing toward the same clearing where the Huxleys had camped. Back at the station, Lauren watched the tech team work to extract the data. The footage was damaged, the rain having corroded the memory cards, but a few fragments survived. The first clip showed the campsite during daylight. Laura and Evan setting up the tent, Daniel off to the side, splitting wood. He looked distant, his movements slow, deliberate. Then another clip, dusk. They were eating by the fire. Laura's hand reached across the log toward Daniel's, but he pulled away. She looked down, ashamed. Lauren's chest tightened. These weren't strangers. They were a family falling apart in real time. The next video glitched, then resumed. Storm clouds above, wind tearing through the trees. The tent flapped violently. Daniel was pacing near the fire, shouting, though the audio was faint. Laura appeared, grabbing his arm, pleading. Then static. The footage resumed 30 seconds later. The fire was out. The tent collapsed. No people. just the rain and the faint echo of someone crying in the dark. Lauren leaned closer to the screen. Rewind that. Slow it down. The technician did. Behind the sound of rain, another noise emerged. A soft whisper. Evan, stay inside. The voice was unmistakably Laura's. Lauren's stomach dropped. Freeze it there. Now jump ahead. The final clip, timestamped at 3:07 a.m., showed only one figure, Daniel. He was standing knee-deep in the creek, clothes soaked, staring at something off-camera. In his hand was the same knife they'd found near the tower. He raised it slightly, then turned his head toward the direction of the camera. His face was pale, eyes wild, lips moving silently. The video ended in a sudden flash of white. The technician swallowed. Looks like lightning hit near the camera. That's the last frame we've got. Lauren sat back, rubbing her temples. So, we have proof he was alive after the storm, but not what happened next. There's something else, the tech said quietly. The camera's metadata. It wasn't installed by the Park Service. The purchase record matches a local store, under Laura Huxley's name. Lauren froze. She set these up? He nodded. A week before the trip. For a moment, the office felt colder. If Laura had placed those cameras, she hadn't been planning a peaceful family getaway. She'd been watching her husband. Pull every second of that footage, Lauren said, voice hard. If she was afraid of him, it's in there somewhere. As the techs worked, Lauren turned to the window. Outside, the rain finally began to fall, washing over the trees in sheets. The forest blurred behind the glass. Vast, endless, hiding everything she needed to know. Then her radio crackled. Sheriff, you better get to the ranger station. The boy's awake, and he's asking for you. Lauren's pulse quickened. What about? The voice on the other end hesitated. He says his dad left him something. A note, hidden inside his backpack. Lauren grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. The truth, it seemed, wasn't buried in the woods anymore. It was sitting in that little boy's hands, waiting to be read. The rain had not stopped since morning. It pounded against the ranger station's roof like a heartbeat. Steady, relentless. Sheriff Lauren pushed open the cabin door, water dripping from her coat, and found Evan sitting on the cot where she'd left him 2 nights ago. He looked smaller now, swallowed by the blanket wrapped around his shoulders. His eyes were rimmed red, but he wasn't crying. The boy clutched a folded piece of paper tightly in his hands. You said your dad left you something, Lauren said gently. Can I see it? Evan hesitated. His voice was barely a whisper. He told me not to give it to anyone unless he didn't come back. Lauren crouched beside him, meeting his eyes. Evan, your mom's gone, and your dad we don't know yet. But whatever's in that note might help us understand what happened. Please. After a long silence, Evan handed it over. His fingers trembled. The paper was wrinkled and damp, edges torn. Lauren unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, Daniel's. Evan, if you find this, it means I failed to fix what I broke. Your mother didn't trust me anymore. She thought I was dangerous, and maybe she was right. But I never wanted to hurt her. I just wanted her to tell the truth. Lauren frowned. Tell the truth? The next line was smudged, but she could make out fragments. What she did. The letter she hid. I told her I would forgive her if she told you first. Then a single chilling sentence. The storm wasn't the only thing that came for us that night. Her pulse quickened. Evan, do you know what he meant by the letter she hid? He shook his head slowly. No, but I remember Mom had a notebook. She wouldn't let Dad read it. She kept it in her backpack. Lauren's eyes flicked to the evidence board on the wall, the bag of recovered belongings from the campsite. She stood abruptly. Stay here. Okay? I'll be right back. She went to the storage room, pulled out Laura's torn hiking pack, and began sorting through the contents. Clothes, sunscreen, a half-empty water bottle. Then, tucked deep in the inner pocket, she found a weathered brown notebook sealed in a plastic pouch. She opened it. The first few pages were mundane shopping lists, camping checklists, reminders. But halfway through, the tone shifted. Daniel's been watching me, following my calls. He knows something's wrong, but he doesn't know what. I can't tell him about Evan, about the test results. He wouldn't understand. Lauren froze. Test results. Flipping the next page, she found an envelope taped to the paper. Inside, a single folded document. Paternity test, Evan Huxley. The results were clear. Father, not Daniel Huxley. Lauren's breath caught. The motive had just changed. The rest of the entries detailed Laura's growing fear. Her plan to leave Daniel after the trip. To tell Evan the truth once they were away. She'd even arranged a lawyer's appointment for the following week. Daniel must have found the notebook before she could act. Lauren's stomach twisted. He didn't just lose control, she muttered. He found out. She returned to the cabin, face pale. Evan looked up. What did it say? Lauren knelt in front of him again, voice soft but steady. Your mom loved you very much, Evan. More than anything. But she was afraid. Your dad found out something that made him angry. Something about your family. It doesn't change how much they cared for you. He stared at her, tears forming. So, did he kill her? Lauren hesitated. We don't know that yet. But I think your father wanted to protect you, even after everything. Evan lowered his head. He wasn't the monster they think he is. Before Lauren could respond, the ranger burst through the door, rainwater splattering the floor. Sheriff, you need to see this. One of our patrols found a cabin half a mile east of the fire tower. Smoke's still coming from the chimney. Lauren's eyes widened. Someone's alive out there. The ranger nodded. And there's more. There's a light on inside. Evan's grip tightened on her sleeve. That's him, he whispered. Dad said if we ever got lost, to look for the cabin. He said it's where he goes when he's scared. Lauren rose, heart pounding. Stay here, Evan. Lock the door. I'll bring him back. She turned to leave, rain hammering the windows. The notebook and letter lay side by side on the table. Two halves of a truth that didn't fit together yet. Outside, the forest waited. The cabin in the woods was no longer just a crime scene. It was where the story had begun, and where it was about to end. The forest was shrouded in mist when Sheriff Lauren reached the edge of the ridge. The faint orange glow of firelight flickered through the trees below, exactly where the ranger had said. Smoke curled upward, twisting like a signal or a warning. She crouched behind a fallen log, eyes scanning the clearing. The old hunting cabin stood half-collapsed, its windows boarded, roof sagging under the relentless rain. Yet a single candle burned inside. Her radio crackled softly. Sheriff, we're 10 minutes behind you. Wait for backup. Lauren switched it off. No time. She drew her flashlight and weapon, moving slowly toward the door. Her boots sank into the mud with every step. The closer she got, the louder the forest seemed to breathe. Creaking branches, dripping leaves, distant thunder. When she reached the porch, she heard it. A child's voice, faint, almost whispering. Dad! Her pulse spiked. She pushed the door open with her shoulder. The room was dimly lit by a single lantern on a table. A small fire crackled in the hearth, casting wavering shadows along the walls. In the center of the room stood Evan, but not the frightened boy she'd left behind. His face was pale, expression blank, his eyes distant as if staring through her. Evan, she said cautiously, what are you doing here? I told you to stay. He wanted me to come back, the boy said quietly. Lauren froze. Who? Evan lifted his gaze to her. Dad. Something moved behind him. A figure slumped in the corner, half covered by a blanket. Lauren stepped closer, her breath catching as the beam of her flashlight revealed Daniel Huxley. Motionless, his body pale, eyes open but glassy. He was dead. For a long moment, the world seemed to stop. Lauren holstered her weapon and knelt beside the body. The cause was clear. A gunshot wound to the chest, close range, no exit. The rifle lay beside him, a single casing on the floor. She looked back at Evan. When did you find him like this? Evan didn't answer. His small hands were clenched tight around something, a folded photograph. Lorne approached slowly. "Evan, it's okay. You can talk to me." He unfolded the picture and showed it to her. It was old Daniel, Laura, and Evan, smiling at a picnic table by the lake. Someone had drawn a circle around Laura's face in blue ink. Beneath it, scrawled in Daniel's handwriting, "She lied." Evan's voice trembled. "He said she wasn't who I thought she was. That she wanted to take me away from him." "Did he hurt you, Evan?" The boy shook his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. "He said he didn't want to live without her. That the woods took everything from him. And he told me to go home before it got dark." Lorne swallowed. "Did you hear the shot?" "Yes." He stared at the fire. "But I didn't look back." The sheriff's throat tightened. She looked again at Daniel. The exhausted face of a man who'd loved too fiercely, broken too deeply. The truth she'd been chasing was no longer a mystery to solve, but a tragedy to understand. "You did the right thing coming here," she said softly. "You're safe now." Evan didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the photograph burning in the flames. The door creaked open suddenly. The ranger stepped in, gun drawn, flashlight cutting through the gloom. "Sheriff, are you okay?" Lorne nodded slowly. "It's over." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't. On the table, beside the lantern, was another note, Daniel's final one. The paper was torn, ink smeared, but one sentence stood clear beneath the ashes. "He knows what she did now, and he'll never forget." Lorne glanced at Evan. The boy was staring straight at her. No tears now, no tremor in his voice, just silence. The forest howled outside as lightning flashed, illuminating his face. And for the first time, Lorne felt a chill she couldn't explain. Evan had come back alone. But maybe he hadn't come back the same. The morning after Daniel Huxley's body was recovered, the forest seemed almost peaceful again. Quiet, washed clean by rain. But Sheriff Lorne knew better. The woods had a way of keeping secrets, even when the bodies were found. She sat in her office, reviewing the coroner's report. Daniel's death was ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound. No sign of struggle. No evidence of another presence. Should have been simple, tragic, but closed. Yet something refused to fit. Across from her, Evan sat in silence, a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. His face was calm, too calm for a child who had just lost both parents in the most horrific way imaginable. His eyes, dark, steady, didn't wander. They waited. Lorne cleared her throat. "You understand what happened out there, don't you?" He nodded slightly. "Dad's gone. And your mom? She was gone before you left camp?" Evan hesitated. "She went into the woods." "Did your father follow her?" A long pause. "No." Lorne leaned forward. "Evan, I found the note your dad left. He said you knew what your mother did." "What did he mean by that?" Evan looked down at his hands. His voice was quiet, almost whispering. "She lied to us." "About what?" "She told Dad we were going to start over, that she forgave him. But I heard her talking on the phone. She was leaving us. She said she couldn't take the fear anymore." Lorne frowned. "The fear?" Evan finally looked up. "He used to wake up screaming at night. He said the woods talked to him. Said Mom wanted to take me where he couldn't follow." The boy's words came slowly, carefully chosen, as if repeating something rehearsed. Lorne's pen stilled. "Evan, what happened the night of the storm?" He closed his eyes. The silence stretched between them until it felt like the room itself was holding its breath. "She ran," he said at last. "Dad told me to stay inside the tent, but I followed them. They were yelling near the creek. Mom said she was done pretending. Dad begged her not to go." "What happened then?" The boy's voice trembled. "She pushed him." Lorne's heart skipped. "She pushed him?" He nodded. "Into the water." He hit his head. She screamed and tried to pull him out, but the current took him. "I ran back to camp." Lorne's mind raced. That explained the wound, the panic, but it didn't explain the gunshot. "Evan, your dad was found shot. Are you sure he fell?" Evan didn't answer. His eyes flicked to the window where rain streaked down like faint scratches on glass. The sheriff's phone buzzed. It was the ranger. "You're gonna want to see this," he said. "The hidden camera we found by the creek, the one in the hollow tree? We got footage." Lauren's stomach tightened. She motioned for Evan to stay put and stepped into the evidence room. The video loaded with a faint hum. Static. Then the forest. Darkness. 2 figures arguing near the water's edge. Laura's voice shaking. Daniel shouting, hands raised. A shove. A splash. Then a third sound. A gunshot. But Daniel wasn't holding the gun. In the dim light, a smaller figure appeared near the tree line, clutching something metallic, trembling. The camera didn't capture the face clearly, but the outline was unmistakable. A child's frame. Evan's. Lauren froze. Back in her office, Evan was still by the window, tracing the raindrops with his finger. He didn't look up when she returned. "Evan," she said softly, sitting down, "I need to ask you one more question." He turned slowly, eyes unblinking. "Did you shoot your father?" The boy didn't flinch. He was crying. He said it was my fault she left, that he couldn't live with it anymore. I didn't want him to hurt anymore. Lauren's throat tightened. "You didn't understand what he meant." Evan's voice was barely audible. "He asked me to help." She felt the world tilt slightly, a quiet horror creeping in. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting pale light across the wet forest. Evan stood, walking toward the door. "Are we going home now?" Lauren forced a nod. "Soon." As the boy stepped outside, the wind carried the faint smell of pine and smoke, the same scent that lingered around the cabin. She watched him go, the small figure vanishing down the hallway, silent and steady. The sheriff picked up Daniel's final note again, now sealed in an evidence bag. Her eyes fell on the last line one more time. "He knows what she did now, and he'll never forget." Only now, she finally understood what Daniel meant. The boy had come back alone, because no one else ever could.